spec. This is going to be the final ATM in the Jello pudding series that I'll be offering. There's more, but we'll finish off with this one. So now that I've told you that it's part of the Jello pudding series, please bring with you all the experiences and all the sensibilities from the other lessons. No, it's actually not a small order. You're quite right, Anna. And I think this is something that sometimes is not always explicitly declared in a single lesson itself. So you do a variation, and then you go on to the next variation, but you don't necessarily explicitly tell people, please carry over what you've just discovered from those set of variations into the next one. Don't wipe the slate clean. Consider your experience. What out of your experience might be useful for you in the next variation? I mean, that is the advantage of nervous systems, right? They form connections, which we call memories. Please lie on your back with your legs long, your arms on the floor beside you. Arrange your legs so that you could use your heels to move your pelvis, to push and pull your spine. So this is an opportunity, a time given to you to remind yourself, what was that organization? How do I make that letter A or that letter B or the W? How do you remind yourself of that? Now go ahead and do it. Use the rolling motion of your heels to push and pull your leg bones, which then rolls your pelvis, which then pushes and pulls your spine. Pay attention. Is your head free to roll? Sometimes people's particular way of paying attention, the way they use themselves to pay attention, involves tensing the jaw, tightening the tongue, squeezing the eyeballs, tensing the neck. It's part of their thinking style, their paying attention style. And so when those people go to do this movement, guess what? The head doesn't roll. Could you please create that scenario in yourself so that your head doesn't roll, but it rubs, the back of your head rubs against the floor because it's being pushed and pulled? And notice, what do you need to do in the muscles of your neck, in your jaw, in your tongue, for the head not to roll. And the constraint is leave your head on the floor. Do not intentionally pick up your head. Now, if I walk by, what I'm expecting to see is no one's chin is moving away from their throat and towards their throat in that rocking kind of fashion. You know that commercial? I can't say no, 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 no. Just say CC. Yeah, you're not saying CC no more. And for some of you, this is going to be quite tricky to actually, I'm going to use a word that was used in the questions for, burning questions for FI. What do you do with stiff people? How do you deal with stiffness? You're now creating a stiffness intentionally in yourself. And some of you won't like it. Can you say that into the mic?
It's awful and it makes my toes curly.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So notice that the stiffening of the neck is not just necessarily in the neck. You start doing all sorts of weird, interesting, strange things with the rest of yourself. Now, give that up. Yeah, you did something with your breathing too. That's interesting. Now, here's ATM at its best. You started off doing something, and then we deliberately created a contrast, something else. And then you return to the original activity, and now you have a comparison. You can compare having the neck tense to not having the neck tense. And if you're not sure of the difference, you just keep going between one and the other, one and the other. And over time, what happens is you find greater and greater freedom in the muscles of the neck. How come? Yeah. Stop a moment. Rest. Please make a fist with your right hand. And now open the fist. Close it. Open it. This is a voluntary action on your part. Can you feel the difference between a closed fist, a closed hand, a fist, and an open hand? Now, the next time that you go to make a fist, make an angry fist. Angry fist. Angry fist. And now, let that go. Literally. Now, because these are intentional movements that you're wanting to make, you know how to make the contraction, and then you know how to release out of the contraction. You know how to change it. That's a very valuable thing to be able to do. Now, let's make another variation. For a start, remind yourself what it's like to push and pull your spine using the rolling motion of your heels. Notice what you spontaneously do with your neck. Is it free right from the start, or is it not? And those words, is it free, now have some sort of meaning for you. Now, find the frequency, the tempo of rocking that allows you to experience your viscera, your guts, all those internal organs wobbling inside you. So this is a little bit like those metronomes. Each one of you will have a certain frequency that when you find it, all those mushy bits inside will start to move in phase, and it's like the tides of this planet. The water gets pulled in one direction and gets pushed in another direction, pulled, 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 and we call those tides. You're creating a tide in your own body through the rocking of your heels. Now, the constraint is that the legs stay long. Good. Now stop. Interlace your fingers, put your hands behind your head. Still have your legs organized to push and pull your spine, but just stay there like that for a moment. Now, intentionally use the power of your arms to move your head forward and then come back. How far? First of all, how far do you need to move your head before you recognize in your own proprioceptive sense, my head's gone forward? How far is enough for recognition? And then, can you find a way to lift your head that does not contradict your breathing? Does that make sense, that request? That search, looking for a way to lift your head that does not contradict your breathing. Looking for a way to move your head forward that does not contradict your breathing. And now one final element. Move your head forward enough using your arms for the skin of your hands to not contact the surface on which you've been lying. In other words, there's an absence of contact between your hand and the floor. And play with that. At what moment do you feel your skin leave the floor? Wonderful. Stop, rest. Now, you know, human skin is an amazing organ. It is an organ in its own right. It's the gift wrapping that you come in. Now, we're going to combine two things, and I'll let you know what they are so that you can begin to imagine it. You're going to be using the same motion through your legs, rolling your heels to push your spine, and you're going to be following that force from the feet, through the legs, into the pelvis, up along the spine. I guess a good image would be like a thermometer, yeah? Until you feel it reach your head. When you feel it reach your head, at that moment you detect that force arriving there, you'll use your arms to take your head forward. Just enough so that the skin is no longer touching the floor. So what will you be playing with? Timing. The timing of things. So go ahead, get yourself into that configuration. The legs are long. Hands behind the head. And now, instead of pushing and pulling, simply push and return. And feel the force moving through yourself in an upwards direction, the flow of force. And there's a certain moment that you'll get a sense of, if I lift the head now, if I move the head forward now, find your timing. So it's no longer pushing and pulling and pulling and pushing and pulling and pushing. It's just the push and then the return. Just release into the return. So you're emphasizing the push. And now I can say to you, start to organize yourself in such a way that it's as if the heels move the head forward. You're not oscillating anymore. It's just a push and a release. But you can still retain the same organ qualities of the push. You don't have to over tighten your abdomen to squeeze the organs. You don't have to over tighten your rib cage to contradict your breathing. All of that can still be there, carried over from the previous experiences. And now it's as if the heels move the head forward. Now, you've all done enough ATM lessons to understand what to do with your elbows. Maybe the elbows should be pointing sideways. Maybe they should be pointing forward. Maybe they should be somewhere else. I mean, this is what you're carrying over from previous experiences. But that doesn't mean it has to be so now. You know that these are possibilities. Now, some of you got really thick skin on the back of your hands. Are you elephants? Actually, they've done a lot of research with elephants. Elephants are really sensitive creatures. Yeah. You know, we often say, thick-skinned elephant, rhinoceros, but I think that's just human beings being arrogant and not knowing about those creatures. Just enough. The heels move the head forward just enough so that the skin no longer touches the floor. Mind you, if you've got hairs on the back of your hand, they could touch the floor. So all you hairy critters out there, can you feel the hair on the floor? Because if there is a push going up, hair follicles are amazingly sensitive. I mean, that is the basis of your hearing, by the way. Yeah? Little hair follicles vibrating in your cochlea. It's also the basis of your balance system. That's enough. Stop and rest. So far, all the variations have been symmetrical, more or less. I haven't invited you into asymmetricality. Oh, is that an Americanism? I think it might be. So let's make it a bit asymmetrical. Rotate your head so that your face is directed to the left. Now, it's up to you how far you rotate your head. You know your own body well enough to know what you can maintain with comfort and for your neck to still be free. All right? Now, keep your head rotated like this. Now interlace your fingers, put your hands behind your head. Do not change the amount of turn in your head. And one more time, start to look for a way for your heels to move your head forward. It's just the push phase, and then you can go into a release. A push and a release. The heels rolling push. Now, if you apply the same force through both legs, okay, let's assume you're doing that. When your head goes forward, does it go forward directly forward, or does it go forward a little bit to the left or forward a little bit to the right? What happens? Go looking for a way of using your legs that your head moves directly forwards, not to the left, not to the right. Your face is still turned to the left. You haven't changed that. You haven't rotated the face back, but your head doesn't wander to the left or to the right. So I'm inviting you now to explore an asymmetrical use of your legs to make the movement of your head symmetrically in the midline. That's a whole bunch of words. Now, if that was already happening, that's good. Then you have something else to explore. How do you use your legs to send your head off to the left? How do you use your legs to send your head off to the right? So can you do that? 3 possibilities. The head going straight forward, the head going forward and to the right, the head going forward and to the left. And you're driving that movement through the use of your heels, not your arms. Your arms are just simply the powerhouses, waiting for the moment for the force to arrive. You don't know how much restraint I'm using not to use Star Wars references right now. Yeah? Yeah. Yep. Now that's an interesting idea, isn't it? For your arms and everything up there to be listening devices, listening for the force produced from your legs to arrive all the way at the other end of you, and then to follow the direction of that force. George Lucas would be proud. Stop, rest a moment. Was anyone born prematurely in here, way before their time? Before they got expulsed, evicted? So because you and I have all grown up in the womb, there was a certain time when there just wasn't enough space in there anymore. And we had to be curled up in a certain way, very flexed. And for most of us, we had our heads already turned to one side. So already within the womb, the environment of the womb was already shaping us towards an asymmetrical shape, an asymmetrical form. Some of us have carried that over into our adult life without even knowing it. Please return to lying on your back, legs long. Rotate your head to the right. Remember, enough to the right to know that your face is directed to the right, not so much to the right that there's no movement possibility anymore in your neck. That's an interesting place. A place of possibility and yet clarity. Interlace your fingers, put your hands behind your head. Interlace your fingers the non-habitual way. And now, through the power of your heels and the push through your skeleton, find a way to take your head forward just enough for the skin to leave the floor. Notice what happens with your head spontaneously. Directly forward, forward and to the right, or forward and to the left. Depending on your structure, even though you've got your head and face oriented to the right, you might find your head going directly forward because something has balanced out. Who knows? Now, just like before, start to use the heels asymmetrically, the legs asymmetrically, and you'll need to make a call. Do I intend to take my head forward? If so, how will I use my heels? Do I intend to take my head forward and to the right? If so, how will I use my heels? That's the game. My intention, I organize myself for the intention. I do the attention while paying attention, and I notice. Mission accomplished? Or do I need to repeat with a little bit doing something differently to reform the intention, to reform the enactment? And that's what we're constantly doing in awareness through movement, all the time. Same intention, reforming the enactment. Now, the next time you release that push, keep your hands where they are and bring the very, very back of your head to be cradled in your hands. So now your face is directed forwards of yourself, and in this instance, it's towards the ceiling. Now, go ahead, use the power of your legs to move your head forward. It's not just forward, is it? It's forward of yourself and upwards. Because now your head, as soon as your head is free of the ground, it travels over the ground in an upwards direction. So it's forwards and upwards, forwards and upwards. Or if you like it the other way around, upwards and forwards. Same deal. Nice. Very nice. Rest. One thing that is important to remember about the chap who invented this method was that he he had conversations and he met a lot of very interesting people who then influenced him. How could they not? He probably also influenced them. And with some of these individuals, he found parallels between what he was doing and what they were doing. And with other individuals, for instance, Gerda Alexander in Germany, he encountered her idea of eutyny. Now, eutyny is this word that means an equal distribution of tonus throughout the whole body. He took that. He wasn't thinking that at the time. He took that and he incorporated it into what he was doing. Years later, Gerda Alexander was asked, you know, Feldenkrais was using your idea about eutyny. How do you feel about that? And she said, yes, I know, he took my idea, but he did things with it that I never would have thought of. Yeah? So it's not just that someone appropriates idea. What happens at that moment that that idea lives in a new environment? Who knows what it'll launch to? Same thing here. When you start your awareness through movement practice, you have no idea where the initial investigations will lead you to. Please roll onto your front. Now that's a habitual way of talking. Please roll onto your front. Why can't I just say, lie on your front, please? And you can decide whether you want to roll, do a backflip. You know, why do I have to shape it that way? Interesting. I find it interesting. Habitual ways of talking. Have your forehead resting on top of your hands, one hand on top of the other. So we're starting off in a symmetrical position. Tuck the toes of your feet as if you were going to kind of like push off for a standing start run. And because it's the first time we've done this, let's take it a little bit at a time. With the right knee, lift it from the floor and put it down, which is the same thing as saying, take the back of your right knee backwards. Isn't it? Is it the same or does it feel different? Lift your knee from the floor, compared with move the back of your right knee backwards. Do those two things feel different? Even though the words are the same, the words are different, the intent is the same, but is the feeling of it different? Now, pay attention. When you take the back of your right knee backwards, what happens to your right heel? Does it move away from your head or does it move towards your head? Now, what do I mean by the back of the heel? That part that you were just rolling on the floor a few moments ago. What happens? Please take the back of your right knee backwards in such a way that the heel moves away from your head, the back of your head. So the back of the heel moves away from the back of the head. Does your pelvis get pulled or pushed? Does one hip come closer to the floor? Does the front of one hip come closer to the floor? Now do the opposite. The back of the right knee goes backwards, but the back of your heel goes upwards towards your head. Now what happens with your pelvis? Does it get pulled or pushed? What happens with the front of that right hip? Does it come off the ground or does it move into the ground? Does the hip go backwards or does it go forwards? Mm-hmm. Now, experiment with the same set of intentions with the other foot, the left foot. So make the same set of inquiries, but on the other side. What's the first inclination? For the heel to move away from your head or towards the back of your head? And then experiment with deliberately shaping what you do. So that's an act of intentionality. You choose what you want and then you go ahead and enact it. And you might do so successfully right from the very beginning, or maybe not. And if you are successful at the very beginning, is that enough? Not in awareness through movement, it's not. In everyday life, it might be. Getting the job done in everyday life is usually enough. But not in awareness through movement. Because then you can ask yourself, okay, could I make that easier? Could I take away all the rubbish, all the plaque, make it more elegant? And then could I find a way to do it that feels so nice that I really don't want to stop? It feels yum. You know when you hear a piece of music and it really touches you and you get those goosebumps through yourself and you go, ooh, that is what I mean. You do it and it's like, oh, wow, that's cool. What about both feet? Can you do it with both feet? Push, push. Push the pelvis. Push, push, push. That's a novel idea. That's fine. Do you want me to put my hands under your feet for a little while so you can feel it? Okay. Yep, yep. Take it out of the picture. Yep, cool. So now how can you push the pelvis to push the spine to feel the skin? Yeah, the skin's back in the picture. To feel the skin of your forehead moving on the skin of your hand. How much of a push do you need for that? Really, come on. How much of a push do you need to create for you to know that the skin of your forehead is moving on the skin of the back of your hand upwards, not downwards, upwards on the push of the feet? And when you ask yourself that, are you able to find it? Some of you look like you're trying to eliminate the wrinkles from your forehead. I'll stretch those wrinkles out, I will. Okay. Let that be and rest, please. Rest completely. Now, as much as the skin is an amazing large organ of the body and really sensitive, the other day I was talking about your connective tissue and the network of connective tissue through your body. That connective tissue is innervated with so many receptors. It's a major source of internal sensation. Your organs are wrapped in it. Your muscles are wrapped in it. Your brain is wrapped in it. Your organs are wrapped in it. Even your skin is wrapped in it. I think they're now proposing that at least 80% of the sensations that you get about the internal state of your body, your proprioceptive state, is to do with your connective tissue. Don't quote me on the figure. I'm working by memory. Yeah, that's amazing. Now, that wasn't in Feldenkrais's repertoire. This is new information. So the skin is a highly sensitive organ. Your connective tissue, your fascia, are a highly sensitive organ. Your skeleton is deaf. No sensory endings in the skeleton. Interesting. Please tuck your toes. Turn your head so that your face is directed to the left. And have the back, have your right cheek resting on the back of your left hand. So your face is to the left and your right cheek, or some part of the right side of your face. You decide which part. It could be your temple, it could be your ear, it could be your cheek, it could be the side of your jaw, whatever's easy for you. Looks like some of you are asleep. Okay. Now, let's play the same game that you played lying on your back. Here's this asymmetrical position of your head. First of all, push with both feet and see what spontaneously happens. Does your head go backwards? If you think of using the arm to assist the head to go backwards and you look for that timing, does your head go backwards? Does it go backwards and to the right? Does it go backwards and to the left? I actually just realized I missed out a step, but I think you can cope. It's okay. If this was actually a real class, I'd go whoop, 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 backtrack. But you're fine. Now, use the power of your legs to send the head off into different trajectories. Sometimes the head going directly backwards and up, sometimes backwards and up and to the right, and sometimes backwards and up and to the left. And when you do that, you'll find yourself leaning on different parts of the front of your torso. Sometimes you'll be leaning a little bit more off to the right and the right hand ribs and the right hand abdomen. And sometimes you'll lean on the left, and sometimes you'll be right in the midline. And the invitation here, so let me make it clear, is to use the legs to drive the different trajectory of your head. The heels move in the direction of the back of the head. It's exactly the motion that happens in your feet when you're jumping off the ground, by the way. If some of you did the motion that I can see you doing in your heels, jumping, you wouldn't get anywhere. This is a great lesson for jumping. I've taught this lesson in the jumping workshop. Stop, rest, please. Are you curious? Could you now turn your face to the right? Remember, you can rest any part of the left-hand side of your face on the floor. And depending on your unique shape of your spine, you'll have a different part of your face resting easier on the floor. That's fine. Find that for yourself. Tuck the toes. And now think. Think of those heels moving towards the back of your head, the toes finding the purchase of the floor, and you creating a push into your spine, and that push traveling up through the trunk, up through the trunk, up through the trunk, until it reaches the shoulder. And then there's a moment that push could, with the assistance of the arm, lift your head. So place the left side of your face on the back of your right hand, and start to look for that. And it's about sensitivity to force and timing. Haha, that's a good solution. I like that. When the palm of your right hand, when the skin of the palm of your right hand lifts away from your left hand, your hand and head will be free of the friction of the floor and the other hand. When the head is free of friction, it doesn't roll anymore, it travels through space. So intentionally, sometimes overshoot the mark. Don't lift at the right time. Lift too late. And feel how there's a drag between the right hand and the left and the skin of your face and your hand. There's a drag because the head is being pushed. Yeah, the skin kind of gets dragged. Like suitcases before they invented wheels. And sometimes undershoot the mark. Take the head backwards too soon, and you'll feel that there's a little bit more effort that you have to make somewhere in yourself, in the upper half of yourself. So you are literally looking for how best to surf, if I can use this term, to surf on the wave of force passing up through you. You catch that wave just at the right time, and you surf on it. You surf on the force. It's very inspirational. You could find yourself opening your mouth. Stop. Let that be. One more variation lying on your front. Place one hand on top of the other. You choose which hand you like on top. Notice, what's the basis of your choice, by the way? Is it habit? Or is there something else to it? Now place your forehead on top of the uppermost hand. Tuck the toes. And like before, you're going to look for when to catch that wave of force traveling up through you, but now without the assistance of the hands or the arms. So explore the possibility of the push of the feet, moving the head forwards and backwards. That's it. And if you're not using a lot of back muscle, you'll find that the head just lifts ever so slightly. If you want to try a slightly different position of your forehead on your hands, you know you're free to do that. Because we are unsymmetrical creatures when it comes to our structure. We do not have symmetrical structure. So is there a way that your head could be resting on your hands so that the symmetrical push of the feet produces a functionally symmetrical movement of your head? Okay, great. Stop. Be on your back. Now, those of you who are feeling a little bit too much work happening in your extensors, you can always interlace your fingers, bring your elbows to your knees, do a little bit of gentle rocking, get those extensors nice and like fluffy again. And you can do that without disturbing yourself too much. Now, the same thing that you did lying on your front, let's explore lying on your back. So arrange your legs so that you know you could use your heels to push your spine to take your head forward, but this time without the assistance of your arms. And if you need extra stuff behind your head, make it so. So go ahead and explore that. Surfing on the force produced by the heels, waiting to catch that wave of force just at the right time. You're just pushing and returning. You're not oscillating. It's no longer push, pull, push, pull. It's just push, return. Push, return. How fast you push, it's entirely up to you. It could be really slow. And you could say to yourself, aha, now I'm at my knees. Now I'm at my hip joints. Now I'm in the middle of my trunk. Now I'm just in that place between my shoulder blades. Oh, I'm getting to that place just at the base of my neck. Here it comes. Here comes that wave. I better start paddling. I'm going to catch it. Yo, I'm on the wave. I'm surfing. Never surfed in my life, but I imagine that's what it's going to feel like. I've body surfed. Yeah. When that wave of force picks you up and moves you, and you know it's not going to dump you, right? When you know it's not going to dump you, it's a cool feeling. Let that be. Let yourself rest. There are no more variations. Notice how you experience yourself. So it's not a question about how you lie on the floor. It's not a question about notice your breathing. How do you experience yourself? It's not a question about the relationship of body parts. It's about you. How do you feel? Now keep monitoring how you feel and make your way to standing, and then how do you feel then? Maybe there's something that carries over. Some experience of yourself. Oh, I saw that. That carries over. Something that's conserved. You know, like when you get really ripe, beautiful strawberries and you conserve them so that the flavor is just right there. Conserved, something conserved. Now, based on how you feel at this moment, do whatever you like for 5 minutes, and I'll see you in 5.